Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron and welcome back today to another video. It is the latest Everton news and rumours. We have had some news over the last couple of days or so that I thought we'd sit down and talk about today. The biggest bit of news we've had is regarding Everton defender Jarrad Branthwaite. The Mail reported earlier on this morning that defender Jarrad Branthwaite is ready to commit his future to Everton and sign a new long-term contract with the club. This was then spoken about in Sean Dyche's press conference ahead of Saturday's game against Bournemouth. The manager said, "I think things are probably close now. We have been speaking to him for quite a while." It was then reported by Fabrizio Romano that an agreement is now at the final stages. I think the Bobble had reported that there is an agreement close between Branthwaite and the club as well. So obviously, this is massively positive news. Jarrad has been a welcome addition into the squad. I think it's fair to say this season he hasn't always been perfect. He hasn't always performed at the level that we need him to. But you know, he's a young defender. Obviously, he was on loan at PSV last season. Really good season there, playing in Europe, winning one of the cup competitions over there in the Netherlands as well. And to have that experience and to be able to, you know, come back to Everton after a really successful loan spell. There was only ever really two options for Jarrad Branthwaite this season. It was either A, get in Everton's first team and really sort of stake your claim as a Premier League centre-back and make sure that you are one of the two centre-backs that starts week in, week out for Everton. Or B, move on to another club and, you know, go and ultimately explore football elsewhere, whether that be another Premier League club or whether that be back to PSV or whether that be elsewhere. You know, there was never really an option for Jarrad Branthwaite to come back to Everton and sit on the bench and be an understudy to players like Michael Keane and Ben Godfrey. There was never really an option for him to come back and go out on loan again. He's at that age now where, you know, he really needs to take that step in his career and you know, he's took it fantastically this season. Obviously 21 years old now, so still incredibly young for a centre-half, but I'm absolutely made up that he was given that opportunity. I did think at one point he'd never be given it because of Sean Dyche's seemingly incredible relationship with Michael Keane, but he was given his opportunity after we all called for it a couple of weeks into the season, and as I said, he's taken it with both hands. Not always been perfect, not always performed at, you know, an incredible level, but that's what you get from a 21-year-old centre-half. He's not going to come in and be absolutely perfect week in, week out. He's going to make mistakes. He's going to have things he needs to improve on. He's going to have parts of his game that he needs to sharpen up, and that, as I said, he needs to work on in training. But for the most part, he is a fabulous centre-back. He's an incredibly talented young player, and he's somebody that, if Everton can tie down to a new deal, which it looks like they are going to do, can be a really important member of this team for years and years to come. Who knows, maybe even a future Everton captain. I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but he looks like he's got what it takes in terms of his physicality, his size, his presence, his ability as a centre-half to have a really long and fantastic career in football. Hopefully that can be at Everton and we can keep a hold of him. I've seen some people linking him and comparing him to players like John Stones, obviously, who we've seen at the club in the past. Hopefully Jarrad doesn't have a good season this season and then move to Manchester City next season, but obviously fantastic news that he is set to sign a new contract. There have been rumours of teams like Manchester United, Manchester City interested in him, that, you know, again, nothing really strong, but certainly in the transfer window before the obviously before the transfer window closed, there were rumours about Manchester United potentially exploring a deal to bring him to their football club. So good news that we managed to keep a hold of him, and obviously even better news that he looks set to sign a new contract. Contracts in this day and age for modern day footballers are not necessarily a guarantee that you are going to stay at a football club for a certain amount of time. If Jarrad signs a 4-year deal, there's absolutely no guarantee that this time in 4 years he won't have moved on. But what it does do is it puts the club in a much stronger position in regards to Jarrad Branthwaite. And if he does want to move on at some point in the future, then obviously the club will have a lot firmer sort of position to be able to stand on than they would have had he have not signed a new deal. So fantastic news. According to Fabrizio Romano, Sean Dyche himself, and various other reports, Jarrad Branthwaite is advancing in his talks with Everton to sign a new contract with the football club. Matt Law of the Daily Telegraph reported a couple of days ago that Everton are set to move to kit manufacturer Castore next year, despite Aston Villa's complaints. Now, if you don't know what this is about, Castore currently are the kit manufacturers of Newcastle. I think the kit manufacturers of Aston Villa as well. I think they've got a couple of other Premier League clubs that they manufacture kits for. Newcastle are moving away from Castore at the end of the season. I think they'll be moving back to Adidas. Obviously, things are going fantastic for them at the moment. And in the Champions League, they had a huge win against PSG last night. And when your club gets to a point where you are playing Champions League football and you are able to compete against some of the best teams in the world, then you obviously will attract some of the best kit makers in the world, some of the best sponsors in the world, and they will be willing to give you much more money than what they would have done had you have not been as successful. And I think Everton are the fine example of that club at the moment that aren't there. And yes, we probably could go and have Adidas as our kit manufacturer, or Nike like we did back in 2013, but because we're nothing special, because we're a club that, are floating around relegation and don't really provide much success, if any success at any point in the course of a season, these manufacturers at the top level aren't going to give us ultimately a good deal, or certainly not as good a deal as we can get elsewhere. We know Hummel had given us quite a lucrative deal. We signed with them. We know that deal runs out at the end of this season. It looks like Castore are the highest bidders, effectively, and that seems to be what's happening with Everton at the moment, whether it be Castore, whether it be Kick, whether it be Stake. It very much seems like if you want an affiliation with Everton Football Club, you just have to put the biggest bid on the table, and you ultimately will get that regardless of what your business is, or how much negative press your business has had, or how bad it might look on a kit. That doesn't seem to be the primary concern for Everton at the moment. It seems to be whoever's willing to give us the most money, ultimately will be on the front of the kit, or will be sponsoring the football club, or will be manufacturing the kits. It's interesting this because, well, firstly, I believe Castore are a relatively local brand. I think they're from over the water, the two owners of that business. But secondly, before this whole sort of Aston Villa story and the whole Aston Villa debacle, I wasn't particularly against Castore coming in. Obviously, they're not as big of a world-renowned brand as people like Adidas or Nike or maybe Under Armour. But as I said, if Everton were to go and approach Nike or Adidas, they'd probably, they'd probably not be willing to give us a considerable amount of money, because what do we necessarily bring them? Whereas Castore are probably willing to give us much more than Nike or Adidas would be. However, they're obviously not as big of a name, and there's various different issues going on with them at the moment. Like I said, design-wise, I have no issue with Castore's designs. I don't mind Aston Villa's kits this season. I don't mind Newcastle's kits this season. I didn't mind them last season. The big, obviously, talking point, and as the article mentions there, is amid the controversy regarding Aston Villa's kits. Aston Villa will be moving away from Castore at the end of the season. They're due to end their partnership prematurely because of this sort of wet look that their football kits are leaving on their players. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, you only have to Google Aston Villa wet kit and you will see what I mean. It's basically some form of, don't know, material that is being used in their kits, or some form of I really don't know, stitching or whatever it is being used. I assume it's material is leaving this incredibly wet and sticky looking sort of effect on the kit, and apparently there's been a lot of complaints from Aston Villa players about this not being comfortable and feeling tight and feeling a little bit stuck to them when they're playing, and therefore ultimately affecting their performance. I mean, it's the ultimate excuse for a footballer, isn't it? Why were you shit today? Why did you lose 4-0? Why did you get battered? Well, actually, I think you'll find me kit was sticking to me from the 5th minute, so that affected me performance. But look, ultimately, if you're a football club and you know the people you employ and pay hundreds of thousands of pounds a week to turn up and put the ball in the back of the net and to turn up and win you games every weekend, they're complaining about the quality of the kits that they're wearing, then you're going to want to make a change to that fairly quickly, aren't you? And it seems like Aston Villa have done that by ending their partnership with Castore and moving forward to try and find somebody else. Now obviously we, as Evertonians, as always, are then left with the question as to, well, are our kits going to look like this? And from my knowledge, I don't think Newcastle's kits have the same effect. I don't think they have a particularly wet-looking effect, and they're also made by Castore, I believe. I don't think I've seen any other clubs that are manufactured by Castore having similar issues to this. It seems like it's only Aston Villa. Having said that, obviously Newcastle are moving away from Castore as well, so they've obviously got their own issues there with them. Maybe that's just a business decision because they're obviously a bigger draw now than they were when they first signed that deal. Maybe it's something a little bit more, I don't know, but once again, it seems like Everton are just picking up the highest bidder. Doesn't matter whether you've got controversy surrounding you at the moment in terms of, you know, the design of your kits. Doesn't matter whether you're a gambling organisation that are slowly but surely getting removed from football. Doesn't matter whether you're a streaming service that, you know, ultimately, again, might look a little bit silly on the shirt. As long as you've got loads of money to give us, then we're willing to put you on the kit or to advertise your product worldwide. And that ultimately is the situation Everton are in at the moment, isn't it? And that exactly describes the situation that Everton are in. You know, we're that desperate for money, we're that desperate for funds that even a kit manufacturer that is quite publicly, having to walk away from one of their teams, or their teams are walking away from them because of the design failures and ultimately the problems with manufacturing of their products. Even then, Everton have still said, yeah, go on, we'll sign a contract with you because you're willing to give us the most money. So, you know, we'll wait and see how this one progresses. I'm sure this one will be completed. Again, there's a lot of quite relatively reliable sources that are reporting that this one is looking likely to be completed. And when it is, we'll A, see what the designs are like for the new kits, and B, ultimately see whether or not they have the same issues as the Aston Villa kits did. So yeah, we will wait and see on those things, I'm sure. And then final bit of news and information I wanted to talk about today was regarding, well, we'll do some stuff about Jordan Pickford first. Jordan Pickford has been called up to the England's men's national side for the latest round of international fixtures. He's also been nominated for Premier League Save of the Month for his save against Sheffield United, which he should almost certainly win, because I don't think there's been a better save ever in the Premier League, never mind this month. And then a little bit of news talking about 777. Nathan Patterson also being called up to the Scotland squad, by the way. The latest bit of negative press surrounding 777 is regarding a court issue. Paul Brown, sports writer, wrote a new lawsuit alleges 777 Partners uses web of companies to move around money and assets to operate and conceal a sprawling fraudulent enterprise. Plaintiffs seek to investigate source of funds for Everton takeover. Again, a lot of words in that paragraph that don't mean anything to me whatsoever. I'm not a businessman. I don't know the next thing about business. I don't know anything about, the purchasing of a Premier League football club, the controlling of funds, and anything like that. I have listened to a couple of people talking about this article. Once again, it very much seems like there is there's seemingly we're in a moment where 777 are being hit left, right, and centre with negative news, and that obviously isn't a good look for Everton. I'm sure you will have all made your mind up regarding 777 on how you feel about the takeover and how you feel about some of the reports that are being published at the moment. But for me, again, I've very much took an approach of we can't do anything about this. You know, it seems like 777, similarly to Castore and Stake, etc., they're the highest bidders, and therefore Farhad Moshiri will sell to them, regardless of how bad they may be for the football club, regardless of how incapable they may be to run the football club. This current owner doesn't and has never ever cared about Everton Football Club, and therefore will only make the decisions based upon the monetary value, and the monetary value for 777 is obviously worth more than any other bids that he had. So let's just wait and see. Let's wait and see what happens. Let's wait and see if anything comes of this. 777, I'm sure, would probably have read that article and say, hang on, this is wrong, that's not correct. And listen, there's two sides to every story. But yeah, it's not great that there's another sort of, article regarding 777 being taken to court in the news, is it? Because it further accentuates the worries and the stress surrounding them buying Everton Football Club. There was a report that has been massively, rubbished over the last few days or so, and it was from Matt Hughes of the Daily Mail, who, if you're not familiar with Matt Hughes is somebody that works for the Daily Mail, which should tell you everything you should need to know in itself, but also frequently talks shite and reports on Everton information that just completely is untrue or is so far-fetched for the headline that is not even worth the time of writing. He reported an article a couple of days ago suggesting that there was a number of Premier League clubs and ex-Premier League clubs that will be suing Everton for £300 million once the new takeover has taken place, and they have written a letter to 777 to confirm this. This, of course, was rubbished by Shamoon Hafiz of BBC, who stated that as of this afternoon, 777 partners have not received a letter from the Premier League or any clubs about plans to sue Everton pending the outcome of the independent hearing on October 25th. Ultimately, I think the real simple answer to all of this nonsense of clubs suing Everton, we had it towards the back end of last year, we had it towards the back end of the year before, Leeds and Leicester are going to sue Everton. How are they going to sue Everton when the Premier League had looked at Everton's papers and accounts and the rest of it and deemed there not to be a problem? Now, I'm not saying there isn't a problem, because an independent body might have come in and found an issue, but if those clubs are going to sue anybody, it would have to be the Premier League, because it's nothing to do with Everton. Now, the Premier League said, we've got no problem, sound. Somebody else thinks there might be a problem, we'll wait and see what the outcome of that is. But it will be the Premier League that will come under the scrutiny from other clubs if Everton have been found, guilty of foul play for whatever reason. So don't listen to Matt Hughes. He talks absolute nonsense. He's a bitter, I dare say, Liverpoolian who just wants to see the demise of Everton Football Club and probably has got nothing better to do with his day than to try and create nonsense headlines to wind people up. So, yeah, don't listen to a word he says. Anyway, we're going to leave it there because there's not much else to talk about. If you have enjoyed it, please do leave a like. Just a little short video. Obviously, we'll be back with the game preview to the Bournemouth game tomorrow, so don't forget to look out for that one. If you have enjoyed this, please do leave a like. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you are new as well. That would mean a huge, huge amount to me. And yeah, we'll see you tomorrow. Big thanks for watching. See you after.